The fact is, life is full of not so pleasant things many times, and particularly these days for a lot of people.
Most of the things that were happening in my life were all bad. I was really pretty much stark raving out of my mind.
I was under a cloud of guilt that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. I couldn't really do anything. Everything was a drag from the moment the light came up.
I was 16 years old and pregnant. And I was like, God, I'm pregnant. What am I going to do? I don't know how to be a mother. I don't know how to have a baby.
I stood over the body of my fiance, who had been killed by somebody in a hit and run, and I was thinking that life was just totally horrible, which it was.
My passions, my desires were pulling me in another direction. And then it came to the point where I just fell down and I said, God, I just can't take this anymore.
You've got to find a connection to something that's going to allow you to have that wholeness, that completeness, that peace, and that happiness that everybody is looking for. The secret is in God.
Are you one of those searching for the answers? Are you one of those searching for the truth? Then take a closer look at the pages in the book, the stories that were told, and the secrets that they hold.
Are you searching for the keys that will unlock the door to success? Are you trying to fill your life with happiness, meaningful and loving relationships, a strong sense of purpose, and a deep, fulfilling connection to a power greater than yourself? Perhaps like millions of others, you've read books like The Secret, hoping to find authentic solutions to life's challenges. But somehow, something is still missing. I'm Christina Ferrari, and I've been where you are right now. But in a few moments, you're going to meet a man who helped me and my family, as well as countless others, discover the paths to enhance satisfaction, accomplishment, and joy. His name is Dr. Henry Cloud. Dr. Cloud is a noted clinical psychologist who draws upon his broad range of experiences in private practice, as a consultant to top business executives around the world, and as a guiding light in faith-based media. He helps millions of people gain positive traction on issues relating to marriage, parenting, dating, personal growth, leadership, and spirituality. And he also conducts a continuing series of popular seminars, workshops, and speaking engagements across the country that have shown vast audiences how to make the changes they needed to achieve their goals. In the presentation that follows, Dr. Cloud will reveal God's secret that will help you overcome the obstacles that keep you from realizing the rewarding life you dream about. We'll also hear the real-life stories, including my own, of people who have seen these secrets transform their lives. So welcome to the first steps towards a better future for you and those you love. A future of hope, contentment, and true success that grows from the understanding of the secret things of God.
We all have come in from a beautiful day, and we want to make the best of it, so let's hop into it. Let me tell you what we're going to be doing. You've all heard of the book The Secret, right? The Secret says that there is this secret to life. It's called the law of attraction. And what that book says is that the universe basically rewards you or creates a reality around you that you've created by your own thoughts. If you think positive things come into your life. You think negative things come into your life. And basically you're in charge of creating your own reality. Now, if you're someone of more of a traditional faith perspective, where you believe in God, then this raises some questions, because that book says that there's an impersonal force. Traditional faith would say that God is a personal force who actually has a relationship with us. And it's those kinds of questions that my book, The Secret Things of God, was written to answer. So we're going to look at this. Is there a force behind the universe, behind it all, that actually works with us in our lives? And is this force of a personal nature? Secondly, is there just one secret? Or has the Creator designed into life a set of laws or a set of secrets that if we know those secrets and organize our lives around those secrets, that our lives work better? And thirdly, will He actually interact with us about how to do that? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to look at basically the 4 areas of life that I, as a psychologist, find people really care about the most. Number 1 is our happiness. You know, everybody wants to be happy, but how do we achieve that? There are very proven, research, predictable laws that God has put into the universe that if we live according to these principles, it affects our emotional well-being. The second one is our relationships. How do we make relationships work? Any of you ever had a bad relationship? Okay, we're going to fix them today, I promise you. Our relationships. The third is our purpose. How do you get your talents and gifts to actually work into something that is fruitful at the end of the day and accomplish goals? And then fourthly, our spiritual life. So we're going to look at all those 4 areas, and we're going to look at them no matter what you believe, no matter what faith perspective you come from. What we're going to find is these are universal principles that God has designed into the universe that affect people of all walks of life. I've talked to priests, to rabbis, to scientists. I've interviewed them about how these laws govern what they do. And that's a little bit about where we're headed. Let me tell you a little bit about how I ended up here. When I was in college, I came to a point where, you call it a lot of things, hitting bottom, or, the bad existential crisis of a 20-year-old. But what had happened was everything in my life had gone upside down. I had gone there to play sports. I had an injury. I had to quit, so I'd lost my purpose in life. I had had a breakup with a girlfriend, so I was really, really depressed. I didn't know what I was going to do. How do you find what you're going to do in life? How do you know how to make a career? What are you good at? How do you even get a job at that point? And I was struggling with all this. As a result of it all, I was really, really depressed. And I mean really depressed. As a psychologist looking back, I would put me in the hospital. So I'm sitting there one day in my dorm room, and all this stuff is going through my mind. How do you make a relationship work? And how do you get undepressed? And all these things. So I'm sitting there, and I look up, and on the bookshelf is my Bible. And for some reason, I felt this, maybe there's something in there that'll help. So I pull it off the shelf. And what happened was I sat down and I opened it up. You've ever heard the phrase, the verse jumped out at me? Well, that's what happened. This verse kind of just stood out, and it said this. It said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you as well." And what that said to me in that moment was all these things that I was sitting there worried about were really secondary, and that they weren't going to work until I looked for God first. See, now that makes sense to me. Remember what I said a moment ago? That there's a God who will help us, and that He's set up certain principles that if we live according to these principles, it affects those areas of life. It's like the designer wired these things into the universe, and if we discover what they are and live that way, then our relationships change. We get happier. We find out who we are, and are able to flesh it out in some sort of meaningful life. So what I did was, I said, okay, I'll try this. Now, at that point, becoming like a God person, that was like a weird idea to me. I thought those people were strange. They didn't even party. It was like, how am I going to do this thing? But I knew that my way was not working. So what I did was I left my dorm room. I walked across campus. I went into an empty church. You got to do this in a church, right? But I go into this church. It was a cold, dark day. And I go down to the altar there. And I look up and I say, okay, God, I don't know what to do if you're there. I don't even know if you're there. But if you are there, help me. And I kind of gave myself to God, as the phrase goes. Well, nothing happened. And I don't know of a worse moment in my life, because before, everything was horrible, but at least God might help me. Well, now I'd asked for God and He didn't show up. You know how on TV, when people like pray, they get zapped and fall out and there's lights flashing. None of that happened. It was just dead, cold silence. So I thought, this is even worse than before. So I didn't know what to do. I walked back to my dorm room, and I wasn't there long when the phone rang, and it was a friend of mine. Here's what he said. He says, I don't know why I thought of you. You're like the last person I would have thought of, but we're starting a Bible study at the fraternity house, and for some reason I thought I would invite you. Well, I put the dots together. I just asked for God to come help me, and then this guy calls and says, come to this God thing, and so I went. Well, long story, can't go into all of it today, but that was, a couple of decades or more ago. And what I found is that verse is true.